The overwhelming opinion, less than 24 hours after making the move official, is not everybody is on board with this Brian Gregory hire, or promotion, I should say. The overwhelming opinion is that this is the wrong move for this team. This was not a outside hire. It was not a splashy hire. Maybe we were wrong for thinking this, but I know I thought it in the moment that when Matt Ishbia was in front of that podium answering those questions, giving his mission statement for the offseason, talking about change and the new identity of this team, I just assumed, and maybe that is my fault, I assumed they were going to look external for that change, that they were going to look external for that new identity, because I didn't think anybody that was currently in the building deserved a chance to fix the mess that they were a part of creating. Before yesterday, how many of us knew who Brian Gregory was? How many of us knew that there was a VP of player programming? The silence that I just left there is the answer. Nobody knew who Brian Gregory was before yesterday. Nobody knew what role he had within the Phoenix Suns. Nobody knew before the rumors came out that he was potentially where Matt Ishbia was leaning. Nobody knew who Brian Gregory was. And there is sometimes a way to justify these types of moves when you go with somebody internally and you promote them, and it's somebody who the fan base maybe isn't familiar with, and you do so in the name of continuity. You do so in the name of, hey, our old executive retiring, our old executive leaving to go to another job, but we kind of like what we're doing here. We kind of like the direction things are going in. So we want to keep the continuity. So let's get somebody off of that tree that's worked in this building that knows what we want to do. Continuity is the only reason, in my mind, why you would try to promote internally at this point. I don't want the continuity of last year. I don't want a continuation of what we saw for the last 2+ seasons. I want new. I want fresh. I want somebody that's going to bring a new vision, a new direction to this team. And perhaps Brian Gregory will do that. I just don't believe promoting somebody internally, promoting somebody that you have these types of connections with, and it feels like you're just hiring somebody that you're comfortable with, lends you to the space, the laboratory, for you to change that vision. It feels like a way for you to go down the path of maintaining the status quo. I don't mean this as an insult. I don't mean this as a personal attack. None of this is against Brian Gregory, the person. But Brian Gregory has no experience that would land him on a short list anywhere to be an NBA GM. He does not have a single credential on an NBA resume that would land him on the short list of any other team's GM search. He wasn't an AD in college. He wasn't part of other NBA front offices before coming to the Phoenix Suns, just waiting for his big break. He has none of that on his resume. He has zero experience sitting in that GM chair. He has zero experience anywhere else that would lend you to think he could be a good GM. And mind you, this is the guy that the Suns have tapped to handle the most important offseason, at least since I've moved here to Phoenix 13 years ago. The most important offseason in nearly 15 years is being handed to a guy whose best quality we can say is he was somewhat a part of their draft plans last year, and we like what they did in the draft. You have an offseason right now. If I am to believe what you told me 2 weeks ago, you got to start over. You got to have a new foundation. The reason why the last couple of years have ended the way that they have ended is because you didn't have the right identity. You didn't have the right culture. Those two buzzwords mean you got to strip it down to the studs and start over with a new foundation. This is a foundation building summer for the Phoenix Suns. The base that this new house is going to be built on, and already less than 24 hours in, that foundation is on shaky footing. Saying that Brian Gregory's resume lacks the necessary experience, that's an understatement. That is an understatement for a guy who has been a college coach for most of his career, who doesn't have a track record of producing a bunch of players in college that have gone up to the NBA level and have become superstars, have been all-stars. He doesn't have that track record. You can't miss this offseason on hiring the right coach for this culture. You can't miss on making this Kevin Durant trade. You can't miss on deciding what you want to do with Bradley Beal this offseason. All of those tasks are being left to a guy that we know nothing about and has zero experience doing any of it. Part of a Kevin Durant trade, part of making that trade is going to be the connections that you have to be able to have those conversations. Perhaps that's why James Jones is being kept around as a senior advisor. I don't know if Brian Gregory is a good evaluator of talent. I don't know. If you're asking me to take Ryan Dunn and Oso Ighodaro being drafted by the Suns as proof positive that Brian Gregory is a good evaluator of talent, I'm going to need more than that. I'm going to need a more expansive resume. You are putting a guy in the chair that has never made a trade, has never called the league office and submitted a trade. How am I supposed to trust that he is going to maximize this return? Brian Gregory's never been the architect of putting together a roster. He's never put together a championship caliber team at the NBA level. He has done none of that. And so, yeah, when all of that is how I feel, I'm not surprised that many of you look at this as Matt Ishbia hiring a yes man, that Matt Ishbia just hiring somebody that he knows from his Michigan State days, that the first time Matt Ishbia has a chance to take a big swing, that he has a chance to make big change, he just goes with somebody he's comfortable with. He doesn't actually embrace the challenge of working with somebody that you may not know. Embracing the challenge of working somebody that you may not be comfortable with at first, that you may have to work through some issues, but you know that that person has the resume, has the credentials to be able to take this Suns team through these choppy waters that this summer's going to be.
This, and I talked about this in the morning meeting, this isn't the offseason that you're in a rebuild and say, well, we need to draft well, we're going to hire a college coach, we think he's a good scout, and understands how players will transition into the NBA. That's not what this offseason is. Yes, this is a rebuild, but in a very different sense right now. It's about making the most important trade in Suns history this offseason. This, at least for the last 20 years, the most important trade in the last 20 years, and making sure that you get a return. This wasn't the offseason to say,
what if we just took a shot?
It's not.
I would argue that that's not even taking a shot. Promoting somebody internally that you just are buddies with because he coached you at Michigan State, that's not taking a shot. That's taking the easy way out. That is taking the path of least resistance. And if you want to be a team that wins championships, because Matt Ishbia has made it clear this isn't about one, it is about championships. You don't get there by always taking the path of least resistance. It's hard to win in sports. It's difficult to reach that mountaintop. Ask the Denver Nuggets. Ask the Milwaukee Bucks. They got to that top, and they have not been there since. Now, it's only been a couple years, but it is difficult to win a championship in any sport. You can't always be looking for the path of least resistance, and that is what I think Matt Ishbia chose in hiring Brian Gregory. If you can't tell, I am not a fan of this move. It doesn't actually make the meaningful changes, and it puts somebody in control. It puts somebody in the seat that, and you pointed this out to me this morning. You used a phrase that I loved in the morning meeting, Evan. You're going to need some beginner's luck to get through an offseason where you need a lot of things to go right. You have to hire a really good quality coach that's going to be able to institute this culture. You are changing the culture of your basketball team. That is a difficult lift. That is a big task. You have to navigate a Kevin Durant trade and maximize that return. You have to decide what you're going to do with Bradley Beal, wave and stretch, buy him out, whatever you're going to do. And you have to make sure that that fits with the financials of what you're trying to do long term. You have to draft. You have to build a roster. And you are putting that in the hands of somebody who's never made a trade, has never signed a free agent, has never conducted a draft as the final decision maker. So it's one of two things for me. You're either betting on beginner's luck with Brian Gregory and that he works out and he is a good general manager, or the scary alternative is Brian Gregory is in this role so that Matt Ishbia can do more and have a bigger say in the way things are going for the Phoenix Suns. And I don't like that reality either. I don't like that pathway either. The Suns do not have a big margin for error this summer. And they are placing their bet. Matt Ishbia is placing a bet on a guy who has never sat in the GM chair before. I can understand going with a young NBA assistant as your head coach. You needed somebody with at least a little bit of experience for this job, for this task. And this was it. Again, could we be wrong? Yes. Is Brian Gregory going to have every opportunity to prove us wrong? You betcha. But right now, as we sit here, this feels like a massive, massive mistake that at the end of this summer, we are going to be ripping our hair out for the mess that the Suns put themselves in.